There was once a woman who quietly slipped out of her old life for 33 days. Not in the physical sense. She still showed up to work, answered emails, attended meetings. But something inside her went off the grid. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped performing her desires. She stopped announcing her needs to anyone who would listen. And then, on day 34, something wild happened. Without writing down her goals, without making a vision board, without telling the universe what she wanted, the life she had dreamed about for 10 years began taking shape around her. The impossible job offer, the relationship that felt like a miracle, the creative breakthrough she'd been chasing for years. All of it arriving, not because she manifested harder, but because she finally learned to move in silence. Here's what she discovered. The quantum field doesn't respond to your declarations. It doesn't care how many times you announce your intentions, recite your prayers, or explain your dreams. It only responds to the frequency you give off when you're not trying, when you're not performing, even when you're not watching yourself. That's the paradox that sabotages most people. They're shouting their desires into a universe that only listens to whispers. They're broadcasting their plans to a field that only picks up on what you'd never say out loud. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you speak your manifestation, you've already diluted its energy. In quantum physics, this is called the observer effect. The act of looking at a particle changes what it does, and the same principle governs your reality. The moment you watch, track, or measure your manifestation, you collapse its potential into limitation. That woman who disappeared understood this deeply. She realized her constant talking about her goals wasn't alignment. It was doubt disguised as intention. Every time she explained her dream, she was really saying, "It hasn't happened yet." Every time she shared her vision, she was broadcasting, "I'm still separate from it." Every time she performed her spirituality, she was signaling, "I'm trying to become what I'm not." But when she began holding her desires in sacred silence, everything shifted. Her energy stopped leaking. Her frequency stopped scattering. Her signal became clean, steady, and undeniable. Because the field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what you are is purest when no one else is watching. This is why your most powerful manifestations appear in the quiet spaces between your intentions, in those moments when you forget you're even trying to create. When you're simply living as the person who already has what you've been seeking, not performing it, not proving it, just quietly being it. If this hits something deep inside you, pause and hit like or subscribe. Your engagement tells the field you're ready for more of this frequency. Because the field speaks in vibrations, not words, and the cleanest signal you can emit is the one that needs no audience, seeks no validation, requires no confirmation. It's the frequency of being so aligned with your truth that you honestly don't care who notices. This is also where people get tripped up. They confuse silence with inaction. They think keeping their desires private means doing nothing about them. But the opposite is true. That woman who whispered to the universe was more active than she'd ever been. But her actions came from alignment, not anxiety. From knowing, not needing. From certainty, not seeking. And that's what we're going to explore today. The invisible frequency that shapes everything you experience. The hidden signal that decides whether your reality expands or contracts. And most importantly, how to become someone whose frequency the quantum field cannot ignore. Not by force, not by performance, but by becoming unavailable for anything less than what you truly are. Because here's the truth that changes everything. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And what you are is revealed only in the silence between your thoughts, the space between your breaths, the moments when you stop trying to be anything for anyone, including yourself. The quantum field has been waiting for you to stop talking and start being. Today, you'll finally hear what it's been trying to tell you, in its own language, the one you were born to speak, in the silence that changes everything. Most of us are living inside a frequency prison and don't even realize it. Every morning we wake up and immediately start broadcasting who we think we need to be. We check our phones and absorb other people's realities. We look in the mirror and perform an identity that isn't even ours. We speak words laced with doubt, scarcity, and separation, and then wonder why the universe keeps sending more of the same. But what if the field has been trying to deliver your highest timeline for years, and your frequency just keeps rejecting the delivery? What if everything you want is already here, waiting in the field of infinite possibilities, but your signal is too cluttered to pick it up? This is the piece most spiritual teachers leave out. Your thoughts don't create your reality. Your frequency does. And your frequency isn't set by what you think about during meditation or write in your journal. It's shaped by the unconscious signals you're sending every second of every day. The micro expressions you make when no one's looking. The subtle energy you carry when you think no one can feel it. The quiet assumptions you hold about yourself when you believe no one's listening. In quantum biology, scientists have found that every cell in your body is both a transmitter and a receiver. You're literally a walking broadcast tower, constantly sending and receiving information with the field. But here's the part that flips everything. Most people are transmitting on frequencies they inherited from family, culture, and past experiences. They're not sending their authentic signal. They're replaying someone else's station. That woman who disappeared understood something powerful. Her authentic frequency could only emerge in true privacy. Not because it was shameful or secret, but because it was so pure, so uniquely hers, that any outside input would distort it. She discovered her true signal only when she stopped performing for others and started listening to herself. This is why your deepest insights arrive in the shower, on walks, or in the thin space between sleeping and waking. Those moments when the performing mind goes offline and your real frequency can finally come through. There's a moment when you stop broadcasting what you think you should want and start receiving what you truly need. But the second you try to capture that insight, to share it, post it, or turn it into something for others, the purity fades. That clean signal gets filtered through your need for approval, your desire to be understood, your old programming about what's acceptable or worthy, and suddenly, the frequency distorts. The quantum field can't recognize it as yours anymore, because the field doesn't respond to borrowed signals. It doesn't care about perfectly written affirmations if they're built on who you think you should be instead of who you really are. It doesn't hear your prayers if they're performed for others instead of felt for yourself. It only responds to what's real, completely, unmistakably, and authentically you. That's why silence is sacred. Not because speaking is wrong, but because in silence you finally hear your own signal, without the noise of everyone else's expectations. In silence, you can feel what your soul actually wants, not what you've been told to want. In silence, you meet the version of yourself who already has everything you've been chasing. The field is always listening, but it's listening for something very specific. It's tuned to the frequency of being, not becoming, not trying, not reaching, just being. And here's the paradox that flips everything. The moment you stop trying to manifest, you start embodying. The moment you stop performing your desires, you start becoming them. The moment you stop broadcasting your needs, you start radiating your wholeness. And wholeness, that's the only frequency the quantum field recognizes as real. So how do you reach that frequency? How do you find the signal that's truly yours beneath all the noise? Beneath the conditioning, the expectations, the inherited beliefs? This is where it begins to shift. The path to authentic frequency isn't about adding new techniques or practices. It's about subtracting everything that isn't you. The field has been waiting for you to come home to yourself. Today, you'll learn how to uncover the frequency that's always been there. The one hidden beneath the layers of who you thought you had to be. Because in the stillness, in the gap between thoughts, in the quiet space of your own being, your true signal is waiting to emerge. Take a breath and comment below with these words. I am learning to listen. Don't explain it. Don't dress it up. Don't perform your spirituality for anyone. Just declare it. Let it be a signal to the field that you're ready to hear what's been calling you in the silence. Let it interrupt the endless loop of performing for others and bring you back to the purity of your own frequency. Beneath all your thoughts, beneath your conditioning, beneath every story about who you are or what's possible, there's a frequency that's only yours. It's your unique signature in the quantum field. A signal that has been broadcasting since the moment you were born, whether you knew it or not. The woman who disappeared discovered that to reach that frequency, she had to step away from external validation, not because she wanted isolation, but because she needed enough quiet to actually hear herself. She needed to remember who she was before the world told her who to be. That's the deepest layer of manifestation. Not learning new rituals or memorizing affirmations, but digging up your authentic frequency from beneath the patterns you adopted to survive. Because the field doesn't respond to borrowed dreams. It only resonates with signals that are purely, completely yours. And here's the profound part. Your authentic frequency isn't something you build, it's something you uncover. It's been there from the beginning, carrying your highest potential long before your first breath. The reason you can't feel it all the time is because you've been trained to silence it, to trade authenticity for acceptance, to dim your light so others feel comfortable. Every time you performed an emotion you didn't truly feel, you distorted your signal. Every time you spoke words that weren't true to your experience, you created static in your transmission. Not because these things are wrong, but because they make the field unable to recognize your real frequency. The return to your true vibration happens in layers. Layer 1. Recognize when you're performing versus when you're being. It takes brutal self-awareness to notice how much of your life is performance. But that's where freedom begins. Without that awareness, you'll keep broadcasting frequencies that don't belong to you. Think about it. When was the last time you caught yourself pretending to feel something you didn't? That tiny moment of awareness is the first crack in the illusion. Layer 2. Learn to trust your authentic frequency even when others don't understand it. Your soul's desires might not make sense to anyone else. They might seem impractical, unrealistic, even crazy. But the quantum field doesn't care about logic. It cares about alignment. It responds to the vibration of what's true, not what's socially acceptable. Layer 3. Act from your authentic frequency without needing approval. This is where most people get stuck. They can feel their true signal in private, but when they try to express it, they water it down to make it palatable. And that distortion breaks the coherence of their frequency. Think of the field like a tuning fork. It only vibrates with tones that are pure, undistorted, and real. When you stay true to your signal, the field begins to mirror it, sending experiences that match who you truly are, not who you've been pretending to be. And here's the most beautiful part. Authenticity doesn't just transform you, it transforms everyone around you. When you broadcast your true signal, you become a tuning fork for others. Your presence gives permission for them to stop performing and start being. That's how individual transformation turns into collective evolution. There's something powerful that happens in the quantum field when you finally stop trying to convince it of anything. Most people treat manifestation like a courtroom argument, gathering proof, defending their dreams, trying to prove they're worthy of what they want. But the quantum field doesn't work like a judge weighing evidence. It works like a mirror, reflecting back the exact signal you're consistently sending out. And when you're trying to convince the universe, you're already broadcasting the frequency of separation. You're telling the field, I don't have it yet. You're signaling that what you want is outside of you, and that you need to earn it somehow. But the field doesn't respond to persuasion, it responds to resonance. The woman who learned to whisper to the universe discovered this truth in the most profound way. The moment she stopped trying to convince the field of her desires began convincing the field of her. Not through effort, not through argument, but through the quiet power of embodied knowing. She became so aligned with her vision that the line between wanting and having disappeared. She wasn't chasing her future anymore. She was the frequency of her fulfilled reality. That's what happens when you stop trying to convince and start being convinced. When you stop trying to persuade the universe and instead live from the calm, grounded knowing that what you desire already exists in the infinite field. That shift from external convincing to internal knowing changes everything. But here's where most people get stuck. They tell themselves they already have what they want, while their body still hums with the vibration of lack. They speak words of abundance while their nervous system still echoes scarcity. They perform confidence while their subconscious quietly whispers unworthiness. That's what I call frequency mismatch. And the field doesn't listen to what you perform. It only responds to what's authentic. True knowing isn't something you talk yourself into. It's something you feel so deeply in your body that it becomes undeniable. When you know at the quantum level, every part of you agrees with that truth. Your thoughts, emotions, energy, all moving as one coherent signal. No internal debate, no second guessing. You simply are the vibration of what you know to be real. The woman who vanished energetically discovered that this kind of knowing could only emerge from stillness. Not the kind you find in meditation or ritual, but the stillness of being so deeply anchored in truth that doubt has nowhere to land. It's the stillness that comes when you stop checking whether it's working, stop tracking results, stop looking for signs. It's the stillness of absolute trust, quantum trust. Not faith in something outside of you, but trust in the nature of consciousness itself. The understanding that your awareness and the field are not two separate things. Once you really get that your consciousness is part of the fabric of reality, everything shifts. In quantum physics, consciousness and matter aren't different forces. They're two expressions of the same unified field. Your awareness doesn't just watch reality, it shapes it moment by moment. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the very foundation of quantum mechanics. The observer effect doesn't just mean particles behave differently when watched. It means that consciousness actively participates in transforming potential into form. When you truly embody that, you stop seeing yourself as separate from the field. You realize you are the field. You are reality expressing itself through a single point of consciousness called you. Your desires aren't requests to an external universe. They're the field exploring new possibilities through your perspective. That understanding changes everything about how you manifest. You stop trying to get something from the universe and start noticing what the universe wants to express through you. You stop forcing outcomes and start becoming a vessel for creation. You stop performing your desires and start allowing the field's creativity to move through your awareness. The woman who whispered to the universe discovered that once she lived this way, everything became effortless. She wasn't trying to manifest anymore. She was allowing the infinite field to express itself through her. She stopped being a petitioner and became a co-creator. But to live like this, you have to release the biggest illusion humanity clings to: the belief that you are separate from what you desire. Most people move through life thinking their dreams, their love, their success exist out there somewhere, and that they need to cross some invisible bridge to reach them. But in the quantum field, there is no bridge. There's no gap. Everything already exists right here, in the eternal now. The only thing that creates the illusion of distance is frequency. When your vibration matches the vibration of what you desire, it appears in your life. When it doesn't, it seems out of reach. That's why true manifestors don't focus on wanting. They focus on becoming. They don't chase their dreams. They embody them. They don't affirm what they want. They live as if it's already true. They don't ask for it. They give thanks for it. Because the field only mirrors what you are. The woman who disappeared energetically realized that her desires weren't random wishes or personal ambitions. They were signals from the field itself, pointing her toward the next expression of her true self. Her desire for love wasn't about someone else. It was the field showing her the love already within her. Her desire for abundance wasn't about money. It was the field awakening her awareness of infinite creativity and flow. Once she understood this, she stopped chasing. She stopped trying to attract and started embodying. She stopped trying to create opportunities and started realizing she was the opportunity. And that's the ultimate shift. You're not trying to get something from the quantum field. You are the quantum field, expressing itself through the beautiful, conscious point of view called you. There comes a moment when you stop reaching outward and start listening inward, when you stop chasing what you think you should want and begin receiving what your soul has quietly needed all along. But the instant you try to capture that truth, to explain it, share it, post it, something subtle happens. The pure signal gets filtered through your need for approval, through your wish to be understood, through the old programming of what's acceptable. And that signal, once clear and alive, begins to distort. The quantum field can't recognize a performance. It only responds to truth. It doesn't care for borrowed affirmations or prayers rehearsed for others to hear. It listens only to the frequency that is unmistakably, unapologetically you. That's why silence becomes sacred. Not because words are wrong, but because silence is where you finally hear your own frequency, unedited, untouched by anyone's expectations. In that quiet, you can feel what you truly desire, free from the noise of what you think you should want. In that space, you meet the version of yourself who already is everything you've been searching for. The quantum field is always listening, but it listens for something very specific. Not for effort, not for performance. It listens for the vibration of being, and being happens only when you stop performing, even for the universe itself. That's the paradox most people miss. The moment you stop trying to manifest, you begin to embody. The moment you stop explaining your desires, you start becoming them. And wholeness, that quiet, coherent wholeness, is the only frequency the field recognizes as real. So how do you find it? How do you locate the signal that's been buried beneath all the noise? It's not about adding more practices or learning new techniques. It's about subtracting everything that isn't truly you. Because your authentic frequency has been there all along, waiting beneath layers of conditioning, belief, and borrowed identity. Take a breath. Beneath all thought, beneath every story about who you are, there's a hum, your original tone. It's been broadcasting since the day you were born. The woman who learned to disappear discovered this truth. She didn't vanish from the world. She withdrew from its noise long enough to hear her own song again. She remembered who she was before the world told her who to be. That's what real manifestation is. Not chasing outcomes, but recovering your authentic vibration. Because the field doesn't respond to borrowed dreams. It responds to resonance, to coherence, to the raw electricity of truth. Each time you pretend, you distort that signal. Each time you dim yourself to make others comfortable, your frequency weakens. Each time you speak a word that isn't true, the field gets static. Not as punishment, but because it can't decode a signal that isn't real. Returning to your authentic frequency happens in layers. First, you notice when you're performing. Then, you learn to trust the signal that remains, even when it makes no sense to others. And finally, you act from that frequency without needing anyone's permission or understanding. That's when the field starts mirroring your truth. Because resonance can't be faked, it can only be lived. And when you live it, everything begins to rearrange itself to match the tone of your authentic being. There's something profound that happens when you stop trying to convince the universe of anything. Most people treat manifestation like they're arguing their case, gathering proof, building logic, trying to earn what they desire. But the quantum field isn't a courtroom. It's a mirror. It doesn't judge your worth. It reflects your frequency. And when you're trying to convince, your signal already says separation. It tells the field, I don't have it yet. And that's exactly what the field reflects back. Distance. The universe doesn't respond to persuasion. It responds to resonance. The woman who learned to whisper to the universe discovered this the hard way. When she stopped trying to convince the field of her desires, something shifted. Her desires began convincing the field of her. Not through struggle or technique, but through quiet certainty, a resonance that needed no explanation. She didn't chase alignment, she became alignment. She didn't act like it was hers, she knew it was. And when knowing replaces effort, the field stops resisting and starts reflecting. This is the difference between pretending and embodying. When you're pretending, you're still trying to get somewhere. When you're embodying, you've already arrived. But here's where most people get trapped. They try to think their way into abundance while their body still vibrates lack. They speak affirmations of confidence while their nervous system still whispers unworthiness. They perform love while fearing they'll lose it. That mismatch, that internal dissonance, is what the field actually hears. It doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your coherence. True knowing doesn't live in the mind. It lives in the body. It's not about forcing belief. It's about settling into truth so deeply that no part of you needs convincing. When you reach that state, that stillness beyond doubt, you stop checking for signs or progress. You stop needing proof, because proof has already become irrelevant. This is what quantum trust really means. Not faith in something outside you, but trust in the way consciousness itself moves. When you finally understand that your awareness and the field are one, you stop asking, "Will it happen?" and start realizing it already is. Your consciousness isn't separate from creation. It is creation observing itself. The field doesn't sit outside you waiting for requests. It expresses itself through you. Your desires aren't random wishes floating in space. They're invitations from the field, calling you to express what it's ready to experience through your awareness. Every dream, every longing, every impossible vision, it's not you wanting the field. It's the field wanting you. Once you understand that, manifestation stops being work. It becomes play. You stop chasing and start allowing. You stop asking, "How can I make this happen?" and start wondering, "What wants to happen through me?" That's the shift. That's when everything becomes effortless. Your desires were never separate from you. They were never outside, waiting to be earned or granted. They are living fragments of your own consciousness, aspects of your being asking to be expressed through you. Your dreams aren't distant destinations. They're dimensions of yourself, calling to be remembered. And when you truly understand this, manifestation stops being about creation. It becomes revelation. You're not summoning something new. You're uncovering what was always hidden beneath layers of doubt and noise. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to stop pretending you're not already everything you've been searching for. The quantum field doesn't respond to your requests because it never saw you as separate in the first place. It responds to your frequency because that's how it experiences itself through you. When your signal is clear, coherent, and aligned with your truth, the field naturally mirrors that clarity. Not as a reward, but as recognition. The woman who learned to whisper to the universe discovered this silence. Her quiet authenticity carried more force than all her loud affirmations combined. When she stopped proving her worth, she started living it. When she stopped explaining her dreams, she began to breathe them. When she stopped performing her spirituality, she started experiencing it. Here's the secret. Your authentic frequency doesn't need validation to work. It doesn't require translation or approval. In fact, the purer your frequency becomes, the less sense it makes to those who still live through borrowed vibrations. And that's okay. Because truth doesn't seek agreement, it simply resonates. The quantum field recognizes authenticity not through logic, but through coherence, a kind of vibrational honesty that can't be faked. So if this truth stirs something inside you, if you can feel your own signal awakening beneath the noise, then subscribe, not to a channel, but to this frequency of being. Subscribe to the courage to remain yourself even when no one understands, to honor your true signal, to stop performing for others, and to start being for yourself. Because every time one person returns to their authentic frequency, the collective field shifts toward clarity. Every honest vibration becomes a tuning fork for truth, reminding others of what's real beneath all the noise. The quantum field has been waiting for your frequency all along. Not the version you perform, not the identity you've learned to protect, but the quiet tone of your original being. Now is the time to return to it, not through effort, but through remembrance, not through noise, but through silence, not through becoming, but through being. Here's the thing. Awakening isn't a moment of fireworks. It's the quiet decision to stay aligned when everything around you tries to pull you back into noise. To keep your frequency steady even when the world forgets its own rhythm. You don't reach authenticity once and for all. You return to it again and again. Each time you choose truth over performance, presence over perfection, and stillness over reaction. Every breath is a chance to broadcast a clearer signal. Every pause is a recalibration. Every honest word is a small act of remembrance. That's what the woman learned. That frequency isn't maintained through control, but through surrender. Through trusting that the energy which created you already knows how to guide you back to yourself. You don't need to chase alignment. You allow it. Because when you stop forcing your evolution, the universe stops resisting your signal. The field doesn't want effort. It wants resonance. It wants the real tone of you, the one that vibrates naturally when you stop pretending to be something smaller. So if you've felt lost lately, if your world feels static or unclear, don't rush to fix the noise. Just return to the simple awareness of who's hearing it. That quiet observer. That's your authentic frequency. It's been here the entire time, waiting for you to stop searching long enough to listen. Because the moment you truly listen, everything reorganizes around your clarity. Not through magic, but through coherence. And maybe that's the real miracle. Not that you change reality, but that reality changes its shape to match the truth you finally remember yourself to be. So let this be your practice. Live gently, but truthfully. Speak less, but mean more. Do less, but be more. Because every time you return to your authentic frequency, the universe responds. Not with noise, but with echo. And that echo is everything you've ever asked for, answering back. Your desires aren't random wishes floating outside you. They're the natural expression of your aligned state. But here's what most people resist. You can't access that state without complete honesty about your current frequency. You can't shift what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't clean a signal you won't even listen to. You can't align with authenticity while pretending you're already there. Most people skip this step because honesty feels uncomfortable. It's easier to jump straight to positive thinking than to sit with the noise of fear, limitation, and inherited beliefs running beneath awareness. But the quantum field doesn't respond to what you wish were true. It responds to what is. So the real work begins in listening. Not to affirmations, but to your own energy. Not to what you want to believe, but to what you're actually broadcasting. When you start listening without judgment, you begin to notice subtle patterns. How you talk yourself out of your desires. How you quietly expect things not to work. How old programming still whispers limits you never agreed to. This awareness changes everything. Because you can't broadcast a frequency you aren't aware of. Most people are unconscious transmitters, sending signals they don't realize they're sending, then wondering why the universe reflects their unconscious stories instead of their conscious intentions. The moment you become aware of your inner signal, you regain your creative power. You stop reacting to inherited vibrations and start choosing your own. Manifestation stops being a guessing game. It becomes a direct, intelligent process of alignment. This isn't about forcing positivity or denying emotion. It's about seeing your authentic frequency so clearly that anything false becomes instantly visible and something easy to release. True discipline of frequency isn't rigid. It's gentle but consistent, like a river carving through stone, not through force, but through unwavering flow. Your authentic frequency, held steadily, reshapes your entire reality. The field responds not to intensity, but to consistency. A quiet, stable signal is more magnetic than a loud, inconsistent one. So the goal isn't to reach some peak vibration. It's to build a sustainable relationship with your own. One that remains honest, steady, and self-aware, no matter the external noise. As you start living more consistently from that place, you'll notice the shift. Opportunities begin to appear that match your true energy. People show up who recognize the real you. Life starts mirroring your inner coherence instead of your old performance. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in years, a sense of home within yourself. The exhaustion of pretending fades. The anxiety of performance dissolves. You realize that being authentically yourself is not only more powerful than any spiritual technique, it's infinitely more peaceful. Because the field has been waiting for this version of you, the one that stopped performing and started being. It's been waiting for you to discover that your authentic frequency is already perfect, already strong enough to create the reality that's truly yours. And when that signal finally stabilizes, clear, coherent, and undeniably true, everything begins to reorganize around it. Not because you're forcing change, but because you're finally transmitting your real tone, and the universe has no choice but to echo it back. But here's the part most people miss. Maintaining your authentic frequency isn't just personal growth, it's service to the collective. Every time you live your truth without apology, you shift the energetic landscape around you. Your authenticity gives others permission to do the same. Friends begin to open. Family begins to question old performances. Even strangers relax in your presence, because your energy tells them it's safe to be real. You become a tuning fork for truth, a lighthouse in a fog of borrowed signals, not through teaching, but through being, not through advice, but through example. The quantum field doesn't just respond to individual frequencies, it harmonizes with the collective. And every authentic signal strengthens the field for everyone. That's why secrecy isn't about hiding your manifestations. It's about protecting the purity of your signal until it's strong enough to hold itself. It's about building inner coherence so steady that external noise can't distort it. Because your authentic frequency is both your personal freedom and your contribution to evolution. Each time you choose honesty over performance, you vote for a world that values truth. Each time you live your signal, you add harmony to the collective vibration of humanity. And that's how awakening spreads. Not through noise, but through resonance. Not by convincing others, but by becoming so real that others remember themselves in your presence. That's the ultimate manifestation. Not getting what you want, but becoming who you are. So completely that everything you truly need aligns with ease. Not because you asked for it, but because you became the frequency that receives it. This is what it means to disappear. Not to vanish from the world, but to dissolve into your authentic being so deeply that reality itself rearranges to meet you there. The field has been listening for your true signal all along. Today, it hears you. And from this moment forward, your only task is to remember, to broadcast it clearly, consistently, and without apology. Not to manifest, but to come home. Because your authentic frequency is already broadcasting, right here in the silence beneath your thoughts. All that's left is to stop pretending long enough to listen.